Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
that's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Discover a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
What's up, everyone? It's Noah Daniels.
Hey, y'all, I'm JJ.
Hey, guys, it's Kat.
And we're your hosts of the Real Hauntings podcast, where we bring on guests to share their first-hand encounter ghost stories and supernatural experiences. Now on to the trailer.
I've been warned to not tell this story, but I think because of the way it ends, it's okay to tell this story, because some people say that with certain entities, to like speak of them or talk about them or in any way like portray them as powerful will attract them to other people. The creepiest thing about it to me is a lot of times it would wait for me to notice it. Like it would just lay its arm out like this, and then I'd be like, where is it? Where is it? And then I'd see it, and then it would just slither back.
For more information on the Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories podcast, make sure you check out real.fm to learn more about our podcast and many other amazing podcasts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Don't Blame Me, a call and advice show hosted by me, Melissa Diamond Monts, and she
is just happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Mine is second ranks. And I feel like I'm about to give away a car or something. Read the terms and services.
hire us to host your next athletic event.
Are you ready to squirt or something?
Just squirt?
Well, no, I thought Are You Ready to Rumble might be trademarked. And so I was like, maybe if they are listening to this podcast, I don't think they're actively like recruiting, thinking of us for sports. And so maybe they're like, look at these girls talking about sex and like crazy things. Like, look at them being woo. So I was just throwing in the little Meghan and Melisa spice into my sports newscaster reel.
Squirting. We'll add that when we have our phone call OnlyFans. We'll host the first ever OnlyFans.
You know what? I actually take that back.
Athletic event. Squirt.
I have a hard time with
bodily fluids that aren't
your own.
That's what
it is. I'm fine with people doing whatever they want with their own time. Like squirt. So happy for you. Like do what you got to do. Like, or just whatever you want to do. But I have a hard time with other people's bodily liquids.
What if you don't actually see it and you're just reading things off a teleprompter?
That's fine.
Okay.
But like,
see,
I can't even watch people kiss. So like, I can't watch someone. I'd be like, I'm so sorry I'm here. Like, let me leave. Like, I can't watch someone kiss in like a PG movie. I'm like,
hilarious. Anyway, what is this show, Megan?
This is a podcast where we give you wonderful, amazing, life-changing advice because what we lack in credentials, we actually don't lack in credentials. We are absolutely stacked to the nines. We're
Harvard educated, NASA trained. That's about it we need for today. We don't have time to go into the other accolades.
And like the fact that you're even questioning us is sexist. It's
racist.
It's racist for half of us. And it's I'm about to pull, and it's reverse racism to me, of course.
Because that's a thing.
It's very clearly a thing. Like, don't you know, in some other random countries, white Christians are persecuted because they are. I can't even. Well, the fact that you even ask us to defend ourselves just shows that you're so small-minded. I don't think that you should be here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are not one of those people and you're here being like, oh my gosh, I kiss the ground you walk on. I don't even know you two bitches, but here I am bowing. What has come over me? Why am I suddenly on my knees? And to that we say, it's just the natural occurrence when you end up in our presence. Like it's a phenomenon. Like it's a medical, people don't know why, but it is been talked about as like an otherworldly compulsion to like suddenly just start bowing and kissing our feet.
As the song goes, I get so weak in the knees, I can hardly speak. I lose all control. And then something comes over me in a daze. Your love's so amazing, but we're not loving everybody. So
No.
I'll end it there. Thank you, SWV, for that great song. And I think JoJo also.
I was about to
did a
say, I have
remake
no
of it
idea who
later.
that is, but why have I heard it? And that's because that, and I could not tell you what the words were. So I was like, was it JoJo or Ariana Grande? Someone who was.
It was JoJo.
It's not so much enunciation going on in that moment, but beautiful. So we are going to give you advice, and you might be wondering, how do I get in touch with you two goddesses to get your wise wisdom, your sage words of advice? And to that, I would say, send us a voice memo if you are international, or leave us a voicemail if you are in the United States. I don't know why I gave you a British accent for that. We just all start speaking. Imagine we just all start speaking the British accents and gaslighting the UK. To be fair, I would fucking love that. We just start gaslighting the UK, being like, no, this is our accent. Like, you stole ours. And they'll be like, oh my God, no. I don't know. There's something, nothing gets me feeling patriotic. Like coming against them.
The online wars.
Yes. So you can leave us a voicemail at 310-694-0976. International listeners, you can send us an audio message at meganpodcast@gmail.com. Both of those, you have to keep it under 3 minutes. You will be cut off. It is not up to us. It is like literally just a function of technology. So to ensure that you're making the most of those 3 minutes, we ask that you write everything down that you want to say, include your age. You have to be over 18 or have your parents' permission, and parents or guardians' permission. Write everything down that you want to say. Please include your ages. If there's multiple people in there, their ages, about a relationship, how long you've been together, friendship, all of those things. If there's like some specific context that is desperately needed to understand the situation, include that. There's some other like, little fluffs and things that we don't totally need, and it won't influence our opinion. But the only thing we can go off is what you tell us. So write everything down, then time it out a couple times. Make sure you're under 3 minutes when you're practicing reading it out loud. And then once you finally got it down, you've done a little bit of rehearsal, clear your throat, you hop on in somewhere it's nice and quiet, nice little audio, and record that. Send it on over to us. And if you do a great job, you could receive a figurative diamond, which is ethically sourced.
From me, an actual diamond. I give a little piece of me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She lays a diamond. She just sits, she goes to bed at night in her
in my adjustable bed, and I push the button up, and when I rise, a diamond just falls out. They're rare though, so sometimes I haven't given one out in a long time.
She's hoarding them. Is it
hoarding, or is it being selective,
or is it enjoying the fruits of your own personal labor?
Mm-hmm.
You've spent so long making those diamonds that you were like, you know what? I want to enjoy them for myself for a while. And the bar has been raised now. Someone has to go so above and beyond because people really took that seriously. And
they did. And we appreciate it.
Oh, yes. I think it makes the episodes a lot smoother, more succinct, and like for people listening, but then also for us giving advice. There's a lot less guesswork that goes in to it for us. So, okay, everyone. Hi. Sorry.
We took a little break. But it wasn't like an actual break. It was a break from the show. But we were still very much working our little asses off. And it was just, for some of us, more pleasant than others. Some of us were figuratively working our asses off. Some of us were both figuratively and literally working their asses off. And they shared it with everyone on the internet. So that's a good time to shout out our own Instagrams. Follow me. She is not Melissa. Follow Megan. Megan Rinks. And I've been more active lately.
You have been more active. I feel like even though our audiences, like we have like the crossover from this audience, but like not in the rest of our audiences, I'm not posting anything on Instagram. And I go, well, at least Melissa is. As if by proxy, that means that like I'm living vicariously through that. And I'm like, well, she is. And now I have something. Because you know what it really is, I think? I rewatch my own stories over and over and over again, but I haven't been uploading them. So then I just get to rewatch yours. And I'm like,
why do you rewatch your stories?
No, like the day up. I don't watch them like my old ones. I just like see what I posted that day. Don't lie and pretend you don't just like then get back into bed after your whole day out and you've posted all these stories. And you're like, let me see my stories again. You don't do that?
No.
Okay. Well, I think that mine's a relatable experience. Please head on over to our Instagram comments and help me feel less alone. Please tell me.
I will go back and look and see who looked at them.
To
see if who I was targeting looked at them. And then I'll go. And then I'm done.
A thoughtful target.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to note for everybody that we also have a Patreon, and there are some visual cues, looks, nuances that you will just not get with audio unless you have previously watched every other episode to understand us. And even then, some things might slip through the cracks. So if you want the full immersive 365 experience, might I say, joining our Patreon. And I was going to say, if you want to hear more about where we've been, what's been going on, what's been going in and out of our bodies, we talk about it tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talk about it in tomorrow's episode of See You Next Tuesday.
All right, here we go with the calls.
Hi, Meghan and Melisa. I'm calling you today for advice concerning my friend Amy. All persons mentioned, including myself, are 24 and use she, her pronouns. Amy and I and our mutual friend Madison are going to a concert together this upcoming May. The three of us have been friends for over 10 years. Amy and Madison still live in my hometown, but I've moved a few hours away from them. I still speak to them both regularly, at least once a week, but I only get to see them once or twice a year now. For approximately the past year, when I do speak to Amy on text or call or video chat, she's very often making herself an alcoholic beverage, regardless of the time of day or situation. When we've been in person, she always wants to do something that is centered around drinking. It's clear from her social media and from her own admission that she is now drinking, or at the very least taking a shot every single day. She's mentioned twice to both me and Madison in a sort of self-deprecating way that she may have a quote-unquote problem. The last time I spoke to her privately, she did say that she's been talking to her therapist about her alcohol and substance consumption, but because she was aware of her consumption levels, she didn't really think it was a real concern. Frankly, I am really worried about her, but I struggle with bringing up the idea of helping limit her consumption because I don't know if it's my place, if I would be overstepping her boundaries, if I would come across as prudent or lame, or if she would think I was being accusatory to her. Amy and I both come from families with heavy addiction issues, so I'm worried I may be conflating our experiences with what I can only see from afar. But I have recently shared my worries with Madison. She mentioned that whenever she invites Amy over to hang out, her first question is if they will be drinking. If Madison responds no, then Amy almost always declines the invitation. Madison expressed that she had the same concerns as me, but that she also wasn't sure how to handle the situation. Do you have any advice on how to address this respectfully with Amy, if I or we even should? I'm worried if that we don't say something now, then if there is a real problem, it will escalate. The next time I see Amy and Madison, we'll be in a group setting, just us three, on our trip to the concert. Would it be a terrible idea to address it before or during our trip? For additional context, I have drank in the past socially, but I've been silently sober for about a year now. And Madison drinks often socially, maybe once or twice every 2 weeks. Thank you in advance for any advice, and thank you for all the wonderful, never wrong advice that you guys share every week. I truly do think that I've become a more well-rounded, more empathetic person in part to you two. I love the podcast. I love what it's done for me, and I love what it's done for others. And an extra thank you to everyone who calls in. It makes me feel less alone in this big world just to know that others have similar issues. Just big thank yous all around. Have a good week. Bye.
Am I pregnant? Because that almost made me tear up at the end. That was so kind. Thank you. Like that almost made me cry. That was like really, really sweet. And thank you for being a part of this. And you are one of the people that you're thanking for being vulnerable, and other people feel the same listening to these calls. First of all, this is a real problem. This isn't like if it is a real problem or if it becomes a real problem, it already became a real problem and it is currently a real problem. Knowing that you're aware, being aware of a problem is like just the first step. And that doesn't mean that like the idea that alcoholics or anybody who's doing something like has no idea what they're doing and they have no idea how much they're drinking. Like I knew that I was drinking, like that this wasn't healthy. And I was aware of it. That doesn't negate any of the fact that like it is a problem. Knowing that it's a problem knowing that how much you're drinking and being aware of that doesn't change the actual facts there. I would say it would be a really bad idea to bring it up the day of the concert or going to the concert and it's all three of you together. Yeah, it's a really bad time. Like she seems comfortable enough and aware like that she's mentioned in passing throwaway self-deprecating you said about like insinuating that she has a problem. And then even the fact that you know that she's like talked about it with her therapist. So you've been let in to what you need to be let into. So thinking that like there's more behind that door, which then makes this window into it obsolete is not true. So there's nothing else that you would know that you don't know that makes this not an alcohol problem. Do you know what I mean? Like it can be a more complex problem than this, but you're not reading too much into it. And the information you've also been given is from her. And a lot of the time we downplay what we're going through or what we're doing to other people.
As a podcast network, our first priority has always been audio and the stories we're able to share with you. But at Realm, we also sell some pretty cool merch, and organizing that was made both possible and easy with Shopify. When you think about successful businesses like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, an often overlooked secret is the business behind the business that makes selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. That's because nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret that's definitely worth talking about is that Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. That's more happy customers and way more sales going. If you're hoping to grow your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
People. So it's not an off basis assumption to assume that it's more than you both know. But the fact that she's brought it up, I do think sometimes joking about things and like saying things offhand is one of the earliest steps that people have into having other people hold them accountable, or just knowing that these people are aware. I've essentially confirmed it verbally and then they know, and that's like a small step in this. So I don't think at all it's overstepping to let her know that you're concerned about the amount of alcohol that she's drinking and that it's taking a toll on your friendships, and that she's not wanting to hang out with Madison when there's no alcohol involved. Like that's not a parent or scolding kind of role. That's, hey, this thing that you're doing is affecting our friendship. So then it does become about you all. And I don't know that it'll totally click for her and it will elicit immediate change. But you also expressed that you have family history with addiction and you've been quietly sober for a year, which congratulations, that's great. You also have to protect your own peace if you don't want to be in situations with her when she's heavily drinking. And I think it's important to tell people why you're going to distance yourself from them, or let them know what your boundaries are, so then they know when they're crossing them what the consequence of that is. And I think it's just kind of about planting the seed. And I think that applies to pretty much every unhealthy coping mechanism and like any struggle we see a friend going through. I've said things about friends, like two friends who I've been concerned about, and it hasn't been received well. Later on, things changed. I've had friends say things to me that I didn't receive well, or I was like, that's not a problem. And I have changed my tune about that and have shifted that. And I don't hold any animosity towards anyone who like said anything to me that like was trying to help. But there is a lot of emotion and a lot of ego and pride put into something like any of our coping mechanisms. Like for some reason, it always feels embarrassing that it's like, this is how I'm coping. Like this is how I'm coping with whatever I'm going through, and there doesn't need to be shame in that, but like shame is like what hides. So I think like if you come at it, both of you separately, I wouldn't do it together. I would do it separately and just, I'm like really concerned about you. And for you specifically saying like, I haven't been drinking all year and I'm like up at a year at this point, and I'm really not super comfortable being around a heavy alcohol consumption at this point. And I really don't want that to affect our friendship. And like, I would love to do like some fun, sober things with you and do those things and kind of leading by example in that sense, but knowing that not saying it, like if you say something, it can affect your friendship, but not saying something will also affect your friendship. Like you're being put in a really hard position. And then I think that the choice that you both have to make, and it might not be the same one for both of you, but the choice you both have to make is, okay, this is going to be hard either way, and it's going to change our friendship either way. So like, how can I protect my peace as well? Like, what is the choice that I make that isn't sacrificing my well-being, or what's the choice I can make that lets me sleep at night?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. So Amy has brought up to you a few times that she thinks she may have a drinking problem, and she's talked to her therapist about it. And when she's mentioned it to you, she's mentioned it with Madison and also one-on-one. So I think that she's aware, like she's very, very much aware of this. So I don't think talking to her about it would be much of an issue, and maybe even making this trip, maybe not saying this, well, yeah, saying it out loud, like, because you've been quietly sober and Madison doesn't drink that much, like maybe just mentioning, hey, why don't we just like have fun and not drink on this trip? I think saying that like may ease that for her too. Like maybe like she might not feel as, I don't know if it's like pressure to drink. So one thing about alcoholism, and I'm not saying that she is an alcoholic, I'm saying as a broad scope, alcoholism is a disease. And a lot of people don't treat it as such. They treat it as just a problem and not a disease that some people have. You wouldn't treat any other disease the same way. Let's say that someone has cancer. A lot of people wouldn't, and when I say you, I mean you as in broad strokes, all of us. One wouldn't treat someone with cancer in the same way that people typically treat people in the same way that someone that's an alcoholic or has unhealthy relationships with alcohol. So I just think like you now have a healthy relationship, and Amy, if y'all just kind of make your own pact, it doesn't have to be like specifically bringing Madison into it yet, but just saying like, if you wanted to let Amy know that you have been sober, and just say, I'm not going to drink at all. I won't be drinking. And, Madison has expressed to us.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a co-founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. During her journey, Isla meets new friends, including King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, and learns valuable life lessons with every quest, sword fight, and dragon ride. Positive and uplifting stories remind us all about the importance of kindness, friendship, honesty, and positivity. Join me and an all-star cast of actors including Liam Neeson, Emily Blunt, Kristen Bell, Chris Hemsworth, among many others, in welcoming the Search for the Silver Lining podcast to the Go Kid Go network by listening today. Look for the Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That she thinks that she may have a problem. So like, why don't we just not drink it all during this trip and just make it easier?
Yeah. The one thing I'll say is that I fully agree with that statement. I think I would have that exact conversation with her. I would have that conversation with her well ahead of the trip, because there are, I don't want to say different levels of alcoholism, because there's the chemical reliant aspect, and then there's the emotional regulation aspect and emotional dependence. if you spring on her, which I'm not saying Melissa's suggesting at all, because you're not, but to people, to you, caller, and anyone else who might be in a similar situation, if you spring on someone who drinks every single day and you're not entirely sure how much they drink, that this is like, you're not going to drink now, today, that can be deadly. So like giving her ample time to just be like, hey, like, this is something that like we want to do, and sharing it, like Melissa said, if you're comfortable in the excitement of like, I'm coming up on like a year of like not drinking, like I would really love to celebrate that with both of you and like, you know, show you how much fun I've been able to have and how happy I am that I've stopped drinking and like doing this like sober all together. I would confer and like talk with Madison on the side first. So she's like, Melissa, you're both on the same page and aware. And that gives Amy plenty of time to talk to her therapist to see if that's something that like, even talk with like her doc, see if that's something that she can do. Even saying like, you know, let us know if that's something that like you think that like could be done, or if like there's something like that we could do as like a compromise in this sense. I just want to make sure like I'm respecting my own boundaries, and I don't want to put either of you in positions where you're uncomfortable or I'm springing anything on you. I want us to all be in our element and like be the best versions of ourselves. I really feel for people who like can see other people in their lives going through something and recognizing that they can't do anything about it. And again, I've been in both positions and it's really hard. And I think the best thing you can do as like a friend, and I've done where it's someone like referencing that, you know, the stuff that they're doing. And I'm just like, you know, I'm worried, like, and it's very like, haha, I'll end up in rehab eventually. Like, this is all like a joke or whatever. Like, the thing that I've just done is like, you know, I'm always here and I'm always offering a different kind of social activity. Like, I'm always offering, like, we're not partying. We're not doing anything like that. Like, we're not being reckless in any form. And I'm here for you when you need those down days and you need to like decompress. And then if those days become more often, like I am still here, but I'm remaining a constant and I'm not sacrificing, because I wouldn't be able to do that if I sacrificed my own mental health and put myself in situations which I didn't want to be in or I didn't like, and then I end up resenting them. So like, that's the thing. It's like, it's a marathon in these kinds of things. And it can be easy to want to do like a quick fix and to just want to shake it up and like, and have this be like, okay, snap in, snap out. And it feels like it might have been a really sudden shift, but it's not for most people. No. And it's not a sudden shift out. So being like a safe place, not engaging or enabling dangerous behavior in your presence, that only works when you're not putting yourself in those situations and then trying to control an event or something that is not your thing that you're a part of. That becomes controlling someone's life, as opposed to being like, here's this other life, pop in anytime. And that stays steady, that stays consistent. And that also doesn't sacrifice your mental health when you set up those boundaries. Like, you can't come on any substances, like, you know, this is these things, but it's a judgment-free zone. But it's not going to bars with those people and parties with the people and trying to change them in their environment. It's about just like showing yours and leading by example, I think, personally.
Agree. Yeah. And just letting her know that this is like, you don't have to like actually say this, but creating like, this is a safe space. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. Like, don't feel any pressure over here.
Yeah. But a concert's not a safe place.
The safe place, like the concert itself isn't a safe place, but the community of friendship is. That's what I mean.
And I know, and I agree with you. I think it's the sense that like anything that you establish needs to, like, all those conversations and stuff happen in neutral ground, happen in those safe spaces, and making sure that everybody's on the same page when you're out there, because you can't control that situation. And if someone is desperate to have something and in a way that they feel like they're going to be judged for it or they're being ostracized from their group, when you're desperate for something, you tend to put yourself in unsafe situations. And that's not what either of you want. You want her to be safe. And sometimes people being safe doesn't mean that they can't get sober at this point. Like, and that's the safest thing for them right now. And that's hard because your journey of it's very, very different. And I think that with me, like, stopping drinking all the time, like, I think it was a lot easier for me because I wasn't 21. And I don't think that runs the same for everybody, but there's just a different level that we can't apply our own circumstance to everyone else and like how they're going to get through, even if it feels like they've been dealt a very similar hand that you have. But I'm sorry, this is rough. And especially because you're long distance, it's like you're looking forward to this thing and there's still a lot of like strings that are there that you're worrying about, loose ends. So I hope that everything goes smoothly, and congratulations again on a year. And I'm hoping that soon she'll be able to say something similar.
Mm-hmm. All right, next call.
Hi, Meghan and Melisa. I've been a big fan of the show since the beginning. I am 30, she, her pronouns, and I'm married to my wonderful husband who is 32, he, him pronouns. This isn't one of those stories where there's a but coming about him, I promise. We met about 4 years ago and got married about 6 months ago. We met shortly after I moved to a new city and not too long before COVID hit. Due to COVID and my introverted nature, I never really made a good group of friends in this new city, and over the years, I felt increasingly isolated and almost codependent on my husband as my only support person here. I've never just felt at home here, and on top of that, I don't feel particularly safe here either. In the last 4 years, our home has been broken into, my husband's car has been hit in a hit and run twice, my car's been robbed 3 times, and the SWAT team raided my neighbor's home at 3 a.m. once. We do live in a suburb of the city, and crime is still just as bad as when I lived downtown. I do have PTSD and anxiety and depression, as well as seasonal depression, which has been really bad for the last few months through winter. This is not something I had experienced before, as I'm originally from the South. Because of all this, I want to move home, which is not where my husband is from. I moved away from my home state for really good reasons. I was in an abusive relationship, terribly unhappy, which I equated to living in the South and didn't really attribute to the toxic relationship. And I was dealing with really severe PTSD, so I just wanted to start over. I know going home isn't going to fix all my problems, but crime levels are better. I have friends and family there, and we'll be able to get a much better house for similar money to what we are paying here. And we would be moving to a very similar city where I went to college and have a lot of friends. My problem is I have a tremendous amount of guilt around making my husband pick up his life and move for me. He is more than willing to do it, as he experienced firsthand how bad my depression was a couple of months ago, but I can't help but feel like I'm making him sacrifice a life he really enjoys in a nice blue state to move to a place where he only knows people through me. He really enjoys his job here as well, and he recently got a promotion. We're not sure yet if they would let him work remotely, but we are going to ask. I know I'm so lucky to have his support. I'm just trying to ease the burden I'm placing on myself, as it's making me second guess myself and my decisions constantly right now. I am in therapy, but I would love another opinion on if I'm doing the right thing by considering this move or if I'm being incredibly selfish. Please go gentle on me. I am very sensitive, and thank you so much. Bye.
I don't think that you're being selfish, but also if you were being selfish, there's a time to be selfish. And if there was ever a time, this is the time, because you do not feel safe at a place that you should be feeling safe. Home should be the safest place that you feel. And right now, you don't feel safe. You don't feel protected. It's adding to your depression. And I want you to take that guilt away, because this is something that you're putting on yourself, and it's not something like that you can't help the way that you feel. But I hope that our opinions let you know that like it's okay. Like, this is okay. It's okay to leave, because if your husband loves you the way that you say that he does, and I believe that he loves you and he wants the best for you, and being in this situation is not the best thing for you. And so, the job, he loves it, but does he love it more than you? No. Like, his friends, he loves them, but does he love them more than you? No. If these were the case, then he would, he wouldn't be willing to go with you. It could be seen as like so selfless that he's making these sacrifices for you, but are they really sacrifices? No, because again, he wants what's best for you. So like, just take the guilt away. Like, you're gonna, moving to the South, red states, but there are pockets that are fine. And I'm sure like if you're going to a place where you feel safe and protected, this is good for you. Like, I want you to remove the guilt that you have, because you shouldn't be feeling guilty for this at all.
I totally agree. I know you said you're sensitive at the end, and like, know that like I'm coming at you from a place where I can feel I feel very guilty asking people to do anything for me. And this was a hard pill for me to swallow, but it has helped me a lot when asking for help and for people to meet my needs where I'm at. Other people aren't reacting to the things that I'm reacting to in the exact same way. So in this situation, the way you're describing it, I'm reading between the lines. You're worried that your husband is going to feel how you felt here right now. People don't react to the same circumstance the same way. And I have a hard time hearing that, because I'm like, so what do you mean? Like, someone else can, like, how can someone else just handle this thing totally fine? And it's not my fault. It's not that I didn't try as hard. It's literally like some people's brains, some people do better, do worse in different situations. And something that is like excruciatingly difficult and hard for me, it can be absolutely nothing to somebody else. And then there are things for me that are relatively easy to do and are just whatever, and other people struggle with them. And that doesn't mean that your reaction and your experience and your mental state through all of this is your fault or of lack of trying or anything like that. It's the exact opposite. So you need to recognize that you're not asking him to put himself in the situation that you were in. That to me is, maybe you grew up and you were a really big people pleaser. And so in your mind, you would have knowingly sacrificed your well-being for somebody else. And you would have put yourself in something that you knew was going to make you incredibly depressed and like at the slight benefit of somebody else.
With something like 5 million podcasts, finding a really good one can take a ton of time. So let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and in each episode, we discuss topics that can be really helpful, like how to read people better, the psychology of crowds, or fun things like the story of Legos, or why you probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for horses. Something You Should Know is the name of it, wherever you get your podcasts.
I don't like to use the word normal, but it's not normal. Like, that is not a healthy behavior and reaction. And he's your husband. You've been together for a while, so he knows that if he then becomes extremely depressed, that's not going to help this situation. Right now, this is a family issue. You're not doing well, and you're addressing this as a family. And if the decision that you were to both make would then make him not do well, that wouldn't help the situation at hand. That would continue to hurt the family. Like, you are a singular unit. What you go through, he goes through to an extent. What he goes through, you go through to an extent. So he's not going to commit to anything that doesn't mutually benefit both of you. And at the end of the day, if you get there, you're there for a couple months, and as it's not as big of a change as you both wanted it to be, it's not permanent. Like, we can always move to any other like direction in calling and things in life. Like, we have choices for those things, and we can't know exactly what's going to help. But when there's an inclining that like, I think this thing would help, you fucking run to it. You go to it and you see, because that feeling or that calling doesn't happen that often. And you have to listen to that and trust him that if he was being dishonest about all of this, if this is maybe not like his dream thing to do, this also isn't your dream right now. Like, you're talking about like, you know, red state to blue state. And, you know, I left the South, like all of these things. You're not looking at this like, I've always wanted to do this. I've gotten this man now. I've trapped him. I'm going back here. Like, I don't want to say that you are settling, but you have recognized that where you are at is no longer working for you. And you want to go try out the place you were at before, which worked for you at a certain time and then stopped. So you're not asking him to give up his hopes and his dreams for you to be on cloud 9 and you're running and chasing towards all of your dreams. You're asking him to help you cope and do something that you think might help. and he's your partner. Like, he's there to do that. So I would not only give yourself more credit in picking a partner who is there to support you and cares about you and isn't doing things out of obligation, but is doing things out of love, and give him more credit that he would tell you if this wasn't going to work for him emotionally, because he knows that that would also affect you. And you're both a unit. And as long as you're communicating, and it seems like you have been this whole way through, you're doing these check-ins, and we have to make choices that benefit us in the moment. And then we hope that they benefit us 5 minutes, 10 minutes down the road, a year down the road, months down the road, whatever it is. Like, we can't look into the future and know what the right choices to make are. So we have to go based on where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's come to you right now. And I just say, go for it.
Yep. Agree. All right. So we're going to take a break now. Okay. Well, next call.
So, my girlfriend and me have been together for 4 years, and we recently took a break. This meant that, we would kind of take time from seeing each other or speaking to each other. It doesn't mean that, obviously, like, we would go out and talk to other people, like, it was just a break from each other. Obviously, I don't want to go into it too much because it'd be a long story, but basically, I like to think that I was the cause of this break. I have a lot of unresolved mental trauma and have some anger issues because of it. Nothing violent, nothing like that. It's just more verbal, a lot more kind of just arguments that I start. I mean, obviously, some arguments were justifiable, I would say, but most of them were kind of just things that I would say out of the blue. And there's a lot of anger that I have built up from just mental trauma. And we decided that a break would be good for us. That way I could heal properly and she could heal properly. I guess my advice is, like, do you believe that this is a correct decision that we should be doing? If not, then, what should we do? Obviously, we both still love each other very much. And I still truly believe that, there is a second chance for us. I still truly believe that she'll be the girl that I'm going to marry. And I know that she believes the same thing with me. And I guess if I can go a little more in detail with the arguments, it was more about, like, I would basically just argue over anything. And it happened multiple times. And it was times where I would say I would change and I wouldn't. But I think after this break, I finally realized it was time for me to actually step up and instead of just verbally saying I'm going to change, I actually put it to action. Because I think my actions showed that there weren't any consequences until she found the break. But yeah, anyways, thanks, Megan. Hope to hear from you soon on the podcast and keep up good advice. Thank you.
Whose boyfriend is this? Whose boyfriend is this? I'm telling you right now that this is one of our listeners. You're on a break with this man, and this is a plea that he is trying to get us on his side, and he knows that she's fucking listening.
Are you sure?
No, but that's what I feel in my soul.
The thing is, he said that he just started listening, so that makes me think that he was listening to old episodes because he didn't say my name one time during that.
Well, that's my other part. So
if he just started listening and it was like very old episodes, then I mean, if he started with the first season, then.
See, my mind is that his girlfriend listens. She's probably been like, oh, listen how great this podcast is. And she's tried. And he's been like, okay, whatever. He's listened to like maybe an episode. He went back and like remembered my name or something like that. And then just called in from like the website and figured this out because he didn't. That's what I'm saying. Like you're giving him the benefit of the doubt that he just started listening to the first one. I'm giving the opposite where I'm like, he's listened by proxy and that's why he didn't say your name.
But if he was listening by proxy, then he would have listened to like maybe newer episodes.
Yeah, but then he didn't put the effort in to then double check.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because I think we should give advice from that perspective.
I agree. I think we should give advice to him. And then I would like to indulge my conspiracy theory and give advice to said girl.
I don't think that's fair to him.
No, I think that's totally fair. But I think like in the sense.
If the girlfriend has called in before and has asked our advice, okay, like we gave advice to her from that perspective of, we don't know the other party. So we shouldn't be giving him advice from that perspective.
But I do think it's true that in most calls, we do a lot of the time will talk about the other person's perceived point of view. So I guess I don't have to give her advice in what I'm saying to him. It will also involve a lot of what her thought process and her choices could be. You're right. So we've got two different experiences with what we think the origin of this call is.
Okay, here's my thing is you said that you're working on yourself, but how are you specifically doing that? Is it that you're just recognizing that you have anger issues in your words, or have you, if you're able to go into therapy or talk to some type of mental health professional, have you read a book from someone that's has certifications, that not just like a self-help book from some rando that you might feel connected to, but like somebody that actually has like a license in therapy or something like that? Have you listened to, other podcasts about mental issues? And my thing is like, what specifically are you doing that will be different? Why, like, you still love her. You say that this is going to be, you want her to be your future wife, but you didn't mention any specific things that you're doing to change your reactions, how you react. You also mentioned that like you get angry, but because of trauma that you haven't dealt with. Have you dealt with that trauma yet? You also said that like your anger issues aren't violent, but what you mean is physical violence, because words can also be violent. And I think that that's another thing that you need to recognize. And also, does she actually still want to be with you? You want to be with her, but does she still want to be with you? If so, then if you're getting like help with your own issues, are you open to going to couples counseling as well? Because that, even if before you revisit getting back together, because that can be very helpful. So again, I want to know what specific things that you're doing to make things better, to make yourself better, to make your relationship better.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. That's everything I was going to say, is that like you're talking about this like there were finally consequences, which some of the language you're using is, to me, very much, I don't mean this in like a belittling sense, but is very much in work in progress language. And so saying things like, there weren't consequences there. It's like, okay, so consequences, that's something a teacher gives you or a parent gives you. Like that's not like a partnership in that okay, she finally taught me my lesson. Like she doesn't have, like, she's not there to teach you lessons. Like she's your partner. And this is not supposed to be a unpaid position for her to teach you things. So to me, that is like, you're at the first step at like, you finally realize like, oh shit, I can't get away with this stuff anymore. But that's not all the work. That is you just discovering that you have to do the work, and you have to do the work before you try to get to do anything, to move on with her, to move on with anybody else, to do whatever. Like the work you have to do is not for her. The work you have to do is for you. And then if you have done all of that work, she's seen that change, and she decides that that is something that she would like to try again on, then you do the work for both of you, and that's couples therapy. The other word to me that was like, okay, there's still a lot to go, and if you really are committed and you really want this to work out with her, I would tell the same thing to my friend, like, don't do it now because you're gonna ruin it. And that's like you said, like some of the, like Melissa said, like violence is not just physical, and having that distinction there, you're equating that one's worse than the other in your mind, and you don't know how that is for her. You don't know if that's her truth. You don't know how that is and how she receives that, and if she would say the same thing. It's downplaying someone else's reactions to your actions, which not okay. And the throwaway line of like, well, some of it was justifiable. It's never justifiable to be screaming at someone, to use emotional violence or physical violence. That reaction is never going to be okay in these circumstances. So when you're saying things like, well, some of it was justifiable, like, that's not to say that like you can't be upset with your partner if they do something that hurts your feelings. You can't then hurt them for hurting your feelings. That you can't think that you were justified in doing that, because that's not a healthy relationship. That becomes tit for tat, and that becomes like keeping track for things and getting even. And that is unresolved trauma. Like that's you're keeping score and you're keeping record of that. And I'm glad that you acknowledge that you've got those things to work through. But like Melissa said, how are you working through that? Like, and so also when you say, like, when you're talking about, at the end of the day, like, I want to marry her and like, I really love her. I know she really loves me. Love isn't enough. And this picture that you've painted, and both of you have probably indulged in talking about your future, you need to drop that and you need to let go of that, because it's basically feels like it's a means to an end. Like, well, we're going to end up here, and however we get there is how we get there. And it takes away the daily decision making and agency within that. And so like right now, the goal is not to look at her and just be like, well, we both know we're going to end up together. We both know we love each other, all of that. The goal is to be someone who she can trust, be someone who she can trust emotionally, be someone who can be her safe place. And if that follows up with being her safe place the next day, and then the next day after that, and the next day after that, that's great. And if then you're her date for a work party, amazing. If you're her date for a wedding, amazing. If you're the person she calls when she gets a promotion, amazing. And the marriage and the life together and all of that, like, those are choices that you make way farther down the road. Not like, this is the person I want to marry, so that's going to happen and we're going to get there how we get there. It's no, be the person that she wants to marry. And you might have been that person at some point. That doesn't mean that like she's always going to be that person to you, that like in a couple of years but like, so when we have those things in that vision and idea we have tied to, it becomes like really hard to know if we're making choices for what we want right now or what we think we want. And if we're envisioning who we are in the moment and who the other person is in the moment. So like, she's not subscribing to potential, and you can't be subscribing to potential either. So you also wouldn't want that. Like, you wouldn't want someone who marries you because that's what they envisioned for their life, versus someone who knows you're going to be an amazing partner because you've shown them, and that they really want this in the moment right now, and not just, oh, maybe in a couple years you'll get your shit together. Like, that's not beneficial for either of you. So trying to rush that process, or trying to smooth over or sugarcoat this experience, and like her experience with you and how you've treated her as like well, I love you. I would tell her that you love her. And then I would say, I love you. And I'm really sorry that how badly I've treated you to make you think that those feelings came from love, because people who love you shouldn't treat you like that. I love you, and I'm like dealing with my own shit, and I need to get my shit together before I subject you to that anymore, because I don't want you to feel like what I did was love, because it wasn't love. And if you keep using it as a justification, you're telling her that you're doing those things out of love. And I don't think that I think you're having shame for how you have treated, and like those things, you're recognizing that it's trauma. Now think, the more that you pad that with these flowery language and all of this love, you're telling her, I did that because I love you. That's not why you did that. So don't let her, like, you have to do the harder work and not just try and smooth it over and fast track this to being better, because it's just not going to work.
Yeah, like I've said before, love isn't just a feeling, it's an action. And so if you're not doing the best that is possible, as our Ariana has said, I saw potential without seeing credentials. So, you know, you can't just, it's just not like who you hope to be, it's who you are in this moment. And if who you are in this moment isn't the man that anybody would want to be marrying, then this isn't the time to be reaching out to her.
Yeah. I mean, I always hate the whole thing of like, how can we humanize women to men by telling them to think of women in other circumstances and situations? So I'm not going to tell you, like, would you be okay with your mom or your sister or another woman in your life or your future child having a partner who treats them like this? So I would just a friend, like, would you be okay with a friend? Or if you were reading a book and this was like the story, like, would you look at that and be like, I want to be like him? Like, and the rushing of this hurts everybody. And if there's a part of you that wants to do this as fast as possible, there's a lot of reasons why. It can be the shame. It can be that it's very uncomfortable to sit in these feelings of like, wow, I did a lot of things that hurt someone. And some of these things I did to hurt someone. I hurt, so I wanted someone else to hurt. Or the fact that you think that if you take too long, she's going to move on. That's something that you need to let happen then. Like if it takes you a long time, that she'll move on. It's inevitable what's going to happen. The timeline does not ensure that it will work. If you're relying on speed and quickness and top of mind as the catalyst for salvaging this relationship, it will never work. It will implode. It will end. And it would do you a disservice as well to go through this process of trauma work with her expense there, because you're going to feel like, you know, if you're taking a therapy appointment at home, you don't want her overhearing. Like there are things that like, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, and she's been victim to some of the shrapnel from this. And you need to have time to like heal and work on your stuff. So then you can be someone who can then heal your relationship with her. But until you heal yourself, you are not going to be able to be a good partner for her or anyone. And you're also then in turn not going to have a good partner because you're not going to be able to provide that for somebody else. So I'm not against breaks. They're not just like sitting in limbo. Like Melissa said, like there has to be action there, and it has to just come from you and not like, oh, should I asking her, should I do this? Should I do this? Like approval? Like, no, like do your thing, and you recognize that the problem is you, and that's the problem that you can work on and the problem that you can fix.
Yeah. All right. Last call.
Hi, Meghan and Melissa. I got a little tripped up on my words the last time I recorded this, so I'm going to try again. I, 29, she, her, was recently listening to an archived But Am I Wrong regarding grammar and spelling correction and ableism. Meghan said something about a person in her DMs along the lines of, you don't get to argue when someone who is disabled says something is ableist. As a disabled person, this really resonated with me. Meghan articulated herself so well in those messages, but the conversation got me thinking about racism as well. As a person of color who's married to a white man, I have noticed a lot of people feel oddly comfortable with saying racist things to me. Recently at a birthday party for a friend, a Jewish girl, 30 she, her, asked me, so have you always been into white guys? I was a little taken aback. I couldn't help but feel that this was racist. Some other people privately said that it was, but that she didn't mean it. She said she asked because her other friend, who is also Indian, is also attracted to white men. Others said it was not racist because she's Jewish. I don't mean to ask you to do the labor for me, but I really struggle with gathering the words to explain this to others. At most, I can only manage to articulate that she didn't ask any of the white men in the room, nor did she ask my husband, so have you always been into Indian chicks? How do you go about talking about these things, or when you feel something is racist and others tell you it's not? Similarly, I've had my husband's old roommate call every Indian movie they've seen me watch Slumdog Millionaire, and felt that that was racist. But others who heard it said they didn't think it was, because the person didn't know any better and genuinely assumed every time he walked in and saw me watching a Hindi movie that it was actually Slumdog Millionaire, which my husband and I think is a bullshit excuse and a microaggression. I grew up in a predominantly white community and never really developed the rhetoric for these dialogues. Any help navigating is greatly appreciated, and if this is in fact not racist, please let me know, as I really trust your guys' feedback, and I know I can be a little sensitive sometimes. Thank you. Love the podcast. Bye.
I think the issue is the friend group.
It's racist. It is racist, and it's the friend group. And I will say I grew up in a predominantly white community as well. And when I was younger, I did not know how to express these things. And I don't even think it might have been in the last 10 years that I like it would be a lot of things would be feelings, but I didn't know how to properly express the feelings that I was having. Like, for example, when I was in high school, this guy that just moved to my area asked me if I smoked weed, because from where he's from, all Black people smoked weed. And I was like, no. And I just didn't know how to properly say that. Oh, and then my friend who thought that she was defending me said, Melissa's not like other Black people. But keep in mind, I'm probably like the only Black person she knew. So it was a
say Melissa has
stereotype.
asthma. No. Okay.
No, it was, she was basing it on stereotypes because there were not any other Black people at our school. And so these are people that are giving or who are saying racist things, who are using microaggressions, who, even if like somebody is Jewish and they're a white Jewish person, they can still be racist. Anyone can be racist. Like, it doesn't stop you just because you are part of a marginalized community. That doesn't stop you from being racist. So the way that helped me was that I think what really helped me was finding friends and like specifically like seeking out people that had similar circumstances with me, and hearing them express their thoughts and feelings is how I learned to strengthen my own voice. And it helped me a lot because I felt like I couldn't say anything, even though I could. And the point of microaggressions is to make you feel smaller. Even if people aren't actually aware that they're doing it, some people think that they're asking legitimate questions and they're not, or they're saying things that they feel like it's coming from a good place and it's not. And let's say you didn't feel comfortable saying things to them, then, you know, it's not, you don't have to say anything, but you're specifically coming and asking, like, how do I find my voice to say, and is this actually racist? If you feel like it's racist towards you, it's racist. And so I would kind of just take steps in knowing your comfortability. And honestly, if your husband is white, I feel like he should be calling it out just as much as, or calling it in just as much as you are, because these are people that look like him. So I think this is work that y'all need to do together. It shouldn't just be on your back. And these are things that he's allowing. So it could, the thing is, like, you have to find where you're comfortable saying things. I was out with a group of people and someone said something that was very ignorant and racially charged, and this other person that I was with, the Black woman, immediately like said, that's not true. Like, she immediately shut it down, where for me is that I'm a little bit more careful with about the way that I go about things. And, you know, I had a lot of respect for her for doing that, but to me, that's not my specific style. So it's about finding your own comfortability in it and calling it in and letting them know, but in the way that you specifically feel comfortable doing it. So, I mean, I can recommend some books by Black people, but they may not be the specific. I think that it'll help because it is, you know, like something that most people of color go through, but they are specifically written for and by Black women, or for and by Black people, but like I'm sure there's books by people in your own community that have similar information, but will be more specific to you.
And if anyone has recommendations, like caller, if you're not in our Facebook group, you have been given a golden ticket. Just hit us up, slide into our personal DMs. We'll get you in there and we can have you make a post, or we can make a post if you don't feel comfortable making a post immediately
and
there.
You can also now
anonymously
Facebook,
post.
You can do anonymous posts too. So, which is great.
So we don't always let people do anonymous posts because we really value shared, I don't want to say intimacy, but like making sure that nobody has the upper hand of gaining knowledge or information about other people. We don't let people just like be in the group and lurk, but we give people a grace period of joining in before they start participating. But I'm sure that like crowdsourcing there would be lots of people in the group who would be able to offer some specific suggestions that either are very applicable to your exact situation, or like similar to what Melissa saying, that are maybe not the exact same breakdowns, but have similar through lines. The only place I can come from this is as a white woman. So I want to really stress to you that like, unless you have specifically told your husband that you do not want him saying anything, and you don't want him like making quote unquote this causing waves or anything in the moment, he should be saying something immediately. And there's a level of intentional ignorance and like of white privilege of being like, oh, like I didn't pick up on that. I didn't know that at all. But that already not an excuse, already something embarrassing and not okay, and has fucking expired. For like, he's married to you. He knows you. If he hasn't done the work in understanding like specifically what microaggressions could be done towards you. Like I was mortified when I had realized so many things were coded as anti-Semitic, and I had no idea. And I grew up with like almost all of my friends growing up were Jewish. And the fact that like there were things that I'm like, oh, someone could have said something and I would have had no idea that meant something. Or like certain things that are racially charged, that are microaggressions, or like tropes or specific things that I'm like, I didn't know that that's where that came from. But it's my responsibility to go out of my way to research those, to know what those things are, and not wait for the moment where I'm watching them happen in real time with a real person who's on the other end receiving that. That's not the time to learn about it. And he's married to you, so he should be taking that steps and that initiative. And the other part is the friend group. I understand, and I'm not here to tell you like don't call these people out and like call them in and work on this. I would also give yourself permission to be done and to quit if this isn't progressing and this isn't serving you. And even if you start trying to call them in and you're realizing that this experience is really not good for you, like you don't owe them that. And I really don't like that in this group of predominantly white people that they're all telling you that this isn't racist. I don't like that group collective. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable even if I didn't know the origin of a specific trope, or if I didn't know the microaggression, like I wouldn't feel comfortable grouping together with a bunch of other, like our entire white friend group. If someone, a person of color in our group was saying that this was offensive to them, I wouldn't feel that way. And I don't think the person in the friend group who's Jewish would feel that, I think they'd feel the same way about that. Like, think if I was the only woman and it was a group of men, I wouldn't feel okay with them saying to me that that's not sexist. And there's a mob mentality with whiteness and weaponizing that. And I really just don't like that that's happening in this, even if it's unintentional. So I'm not obviously, again, against you calling them in and having these conversations with them. But I would really keep in mind that you don't have to do this because these aren't your only options for friends. Like this isn't like something you're going to have to go through with every friend you make. And calling people, like Melissa said, like I obviously can't relate in a race sense, but when you mentioned like me talking about responding to someone in a DM about like being ableist, that's similar to what Melissa said, like that was a safe place for me. And I knew that that was a safe place for me. And then I knew coming onto the podcast and talking about it, I know Melissa's a safe place for me to talk about this. But that doesn't mean how I interacted with that person, I would have said the exact same thing or done the exact same thing if the circumstance was different. Like if I'm outnumbered, if I'm with people I don't know, if I'm like something as simple as like, if I'm traveling by myself, if I'm at a hotel, like I have to be in a place where I recognize I'm physically and emotionally safe to do something like that. And so knowing that how you react to something in one moment doesn't have to be matched to how you react to something in a different one. You don't have to hold the same standards and expectations for yourself for that, because you have to protect your well-being and your safety. And sometimes it's not that moment. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't mean that what they did was okay or you're like fine with it or justifying it. You can be just as mad and call it out or respond in two vastly different ways, like minutes between each other. It's just about the safe place. And I think if you recognize after trying whatever you want, like however long, that your friends group is not a safe place, your friends should be the safe. Like if any place is the safe place, it should be with your husband, your partner, and your friends. I'm really sorry. This really sucks. And I think even if you maintain this friend group, which I'm not saying not to, again, for the 1000th time, I would additionally seek out some other friends just to have more people in your life where have some friendships that are easy, some friendships that are just, there's not work being put into it, because you're not going to reap the same benefits of friendship in this moment when this is like a learning and educating process, regardless of how much you're investing into that. You still need friends. And right now, they're not the friends you need, and they can still be your friends, but you need to find some friends that have that, like, okay, weight off my shoulders, releasing, like unmasking, like I'm just okay.
And
I'm
you don't
just
have to
here.
you don't have to feel like you have to be like careful around them saying or doing or watching things. Like you can just be.
Yeah. So I'm sorry you're going through this.
All right. So now we're going to take a break.
And we're back for Don't Blame Them. This is where one of you, a listener, you call in and you leave your own advice pertaining to a call that we had on a previous episode. So maybe you have personal experience with it. It relates to your profession, or you just have some additional insight that maybe we didn't touch on in the original and you would like to share with our audience and the original caller.
Hi, Meghan and Melisa. I'm a 25-year-old female using she, her pronouns. I'm a little sick, so I apologize about that. I'm a second-year medical student calling in for the most recent Don't Blame Them episode with Candace King. I'll be sharing insight regarding the caller not wanting to go to medical school. So first of all, I just want to say I'm really sorry you have to deal with this stressful situation. It's very tough to have that pressure, and also regarding medical school. I want to touch on you saying, should I go anyway to please my mother? Medical school is the hardest thing mentally that I've experienced so far. On the really hard days, the only thing that gets me through is that I love what I'm learning and I'm excited to care for patients at the end of this. If you don't have that passion, which it sounds like you don't, which is also completely fine, you'll be sacrificing a lot mentally for something you don't even want to do. So I would highly suggest against that. In terms of what Melissa touched on, while in theory taking the MCAT and applying to medical school to satisfy your mom until you're financially independent is, good in theory, that process will be mentally taxing and very expensive. Depending on how involved in your life your mom is, you're going to have to make it seem like you're studying daily, buy the study materials, and at the end of it take an 8-hour-long exam that is so grueling and is over $300 to even take. Plus, you can't really fail the MCAT. You just receive a score that determines what schools you should apply to based on the metrics of their accepted students. So if you took the MCAT to purposely get a low score, depending on whether or not your mom will know about your score, she may want you to retake it, or if she doesn't know much about the scoring system, she may have you apply to schools anyway. Taking the MCAT and applying to medical school is an incredibly expensive process altogether. I ended up spending thousands of dollars on study materials, the MCAT itself, and applying to different schools. You said you're currently financially dependent on her, so assuming you use your mom's money to do this, you'll have to keep her in the loop about what schools you're applying to, what score you got, etc. It just feels like a very tough life to maintain, and it will mentally drain you to fake your way through the process. It's a super tough situation, and I think the best bet for you is to buy time until you're financially independent, like Meghan and Melisa said. You could tell her the school you really want to get into values research or clinical experience, so you need a year of that experience in order to apply, or something along those lines. Good luck.
The headaches I've seen from like people who've like they've talked about, like there's even some that in between you take your MCAT and you do your like residence or whatever, that like it's even like frowned upon to take breaks, like the whole thing. Like it's a lot, and I think that I'm glad that someone who has gone through it could call in and talk about not just like the financial aspect, but like the emotional toll of like, you know, keeping a charade up and having to still go through an 8-hour test is a lot. But thank you for your insight and good luck in school.
I know I took the DAT, the dental test, but I don't even remember anything about it.
Yeah. Well, also for a lot of those things, like you're studying for test, not like anything that's like applicable, like knowledge for it. It's like you think of that with like the bar. People talk about that all the time. Like you're studying how to understand to take the test, and like,
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of like chemistry and science stuff on it, but still.
That is it for our episode.
That came from your throat.
We hope you all enjoyed. Sorry. Jump scare. Hope you're not listening in the morning, or I'm waking you up. We hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you would like to participate in an upcoming one, give us a call, leave us a voice memo, all of the details that we said at the beginning of the episode. You can also check out the description bar, the details, the show notes, and it will tell you what to do and how to do it. Again, our Patreon, for just $1 a month, you can get the video version of this podcast, and then the tiers go up from there. So you can get the video version of this podcast and our other podcast, or just our other podcast, or you can have both. Or you can just do our live streams, where we do a live stream twice a month. It's very fun. It's literally just like a Zoom hangout with friends that you maybe have never met before. But people like literally have made legitimate friendships. They visit each other. They hang out. They spend time together in person and not in real life. And
they
we're there
text
too.
each other.
Yeah, they haven't included us on their group chat. It's like really rude.
Really,
like we've been begging to be on it.
So mean.
Like it's so
fucking mean.
Mean. Like you guys don't.
And every time I bring it up, they shut me down too.
Yeah,
so
they're like, oh my God, like we don't want them on our group chat. And it's like, wow, okay, like I guess like we're just uncool, like just trying to just like cling on. And it's like, oh, okay. So
whatever.
I promise they're really nice aside from that. Like it's just so fucked up.
Meanies.
The amount of DMs they're about to be like, you fucking assholes. You've said 1,000 times you don't want to be in it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyways, so yeah, it's a fun time. And you can also support the show that way. And you can also support the show if you are a company and you work for said company that does podcast ads. Pitch us, put us on your decks. We have so many cute pictures of us. We look great. Like Target ripped off our entire shtick for a fucking greeting card. Like
they did. Hallmark.
Yeah, your company should be clamoring. Like they should just be like desperately trying to get the Melisa and Meghan stamp of approval. So we'll be eagerly waiting your email. And we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye. Don't Blame Me is a production by me, Megan Rinks.
And me, Melisa D. Montz, plus Diamond Imprint Productions.
Post-production sound and editing by Coco Lorenz.
Production assistance by Melanie D. Watson.
And music by Giacomo Picasso and Ryan Hunter.
Merry Christmas, everybody. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm here with my good buddy,
Danny Jordan.
And we are the co-hosts of the Let me try that again. Merry Christmas, everybody. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm here with my good buddy,
Danny Jordan.
And we are the hosts of Christmas Countdown Show.
We're so thrilled to be bringing the merriment to you all this holiday season.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be massively merry, gigantically jolly, fantastically festive, as some people might say, Eric. We are all about alliterations, and we are all about Christmas spirit. On Christmas Countdown, we love to count down our top 10 favorite things related to the holiday season. That could be food, movies, music, everything that we all love about this massively merry good time. So wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you click that subscribe button. Eric, are you ready?
I am ready, and we hope that you are too. Merry Christmas, everybody. Let's go. It should be like, let's go, ho, ho, ho.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
Contained herein are the heresies of Radolf Buntwine, erstwhile monk turned traveling medical investigator. Join me as I study the secrets of the divine plagues and uncover the blasphemous truth that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The heresies of Radolf Buntwine, wherever podcasts are available.